The people of the book in the Quran.
Yeah.
What that means is like we believe that they, when I say they, I mean obviously during the time of Moses and during the time of Jesus, they were given revelation directly from the same God. The same God as we believe, is given the same revelation. Sorry, different revelation to different prophets during different times.
Yeah.
And that's the reason they're referred to as the people of the book in the Quran.
I think there's actually a really interesting tiny segue very quickly.
Okay.
The patriarchs of the Bible, the Hebrew patriarchs, actually being related to a late dynastic Egyptian line, I think is really, really credible now. And you can have a look at the names of the patriarchs in the Old Testament and actually match them against Egyptian Hyksos, essentially shepherd kings lines, and you find the same names. So these guys were actually existing.
When you say patriarchs, you mean the prophets?
Prophets. Sorry, the same thing. Prophets actually.
But going back to theology,
Very interesting, by the way, because it shows you how Egypt had such a massive impact on the Hebrews.
It could be possible because the Quran says that Allah sent messengers to every nation.
Yeah, sure.
And every nation includes Egypt, includes India, includes other parts of the world.
Jews were supposed to be in Egypt for quite a while. There are some, the 10 plagues in Egyptian stelae, you see this. There are Psalms, Old Testament Psalms that come from Egyptian texts. They're laid out. The Ten
So
Commandments
I think there's
coming from
sometimes there is like a common, let's say, doctrines within their faith. Like, look, the important thing here is to understand how people saw God. Like for the Egyptians, they had a really strong focus on life after death. So in that terms, what is your belief? As a Christian, I believe.
I think
Gnostic Christian.
Oh, I see, okay.
I'll say it, reincarnation, essentially, in that we are here and we are endless, we are timeless. That spirit that comes into every single one, and everyone here is actually in effect timeless.
But why do you believe in a reincarnation? Why don't you believe that life is just one rather than multiple chances?
The spirit that inhabits our soul is cyclical, and I think it comes.
No, but what? That's a presupposition, isn't it? On what basis do you think it's cyclical?
Well, revelation. I'd say I think personal revelation from some kind of divine source. And
Which revelation?
That's not testable at all. I'm just saying.
So which revelation says it's cyclical?
Oh, so everything's cyclical. The idea of God is cyclical. God, generation, operation, decline.
Yeah, but that's a Hindu philosophy. How do you?
Our lives are, we go up, we go down. The idea of us starting again and coming back, and heaven and hell, just very quickly, this Gnostic idea of heaven and hell being here, and us being able to achieve heaven in the moment, and tomorrow, sure, and hell as well, here being existent here, I think is very
So for us, we have a clear distinction between God and the creation. Do you believe in a duality, or do you believe in a non-duality?
But also that logos in creation, this idea of the word being spoken and the word creating everything around
No,
us.
but that just, the word being spoken, it could be, we believe that Allah created Adam and he said be, and it became from dust.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
So the logos which you're talking about practically just means for us, it is a command of God.
Yeah.
So when God wants something to come into existence, he can just command it to come into existence. He says kun, which is the logos, the word or the command of Allah, which brings things into existence, like be, and it is.
Yeah, sure. But that word itself, if you think of physics, pure physics, the idea of a vibration and energy being everything we are, everything that exists, is a dynamic between electron and electron and neutron. And the idea of a vibrational frequency being at the very Planck length, the Planck distance within the smallest things we've been able to find so far.
Yeah, but where's the link between that and, for example,
the sound, the vibration, because everything is sound.
Do you believe there is existence beyond the material world?
Yeah.
Do you believe in a metaphysical world? Okay, so how would you relate for example, you talk about vibrations, energy, matter, for example. All these things are something which originated with the universe.
Yeah.
So do you believe that was God before the universe was created? Yeah?
Sure.
What was he? Like what? Can you define from your understanding what God is?
Brains are petty human brains can't exactly, you know what I mean? It's hard to...
This is where I would like to remind you about the revelation.
Go on.
Yeah? Because earlier you mentioned the revelation. Yes. How do you know? That's how we also know, because there's no way we can see beyond the existence we have today, isn't it? So we can't see beyond that. So we have to depend on... we depend on the revelation, the testimony of the prophets. So the prophets were given revelation by God. Do you believe God can communicate with us?
Yes.
Yes? So God is able, because He is the creator of everything, including all the existence that you know of. Yes? So He is ever existing. He's not created.
Sending His Spirit, and it's coming into the hearts of the epistle writers.
No, He sends prophets and messengers. So human beings like us, yes, obviously righteous human beings.
How do they get to? How do they? I'm assuming they're kind of picked, or they reach a certain level of.
Just like you agreed with me that God is able to communicate with His creation, so He can communicate either through angels or some other means. If He wants, He can. Yeah. So this is how God communicates. We don't believe that God is someone who is distant and is like this absent Father who once created just leaves the universe to fend for itself. We believe that He's constantly guiding us in different ways. And one of the ways He guides us is through His revelation. And the revelation comes through prophets and messengers. And these prophets and messengers are not just only Tom, Dick, and Harry. God Himself appoints them.
That's right. I mean, this is the initiatory systems that come through a lot of Gnostic ideas and Gnostic thought.
Yeah.
The idea that you...
By the way, Gnosticism is not mainstream Christianity.
Right? So the idea of milk and meat in the New Testament, and to the prophet, the epistle writers, and these people who had those revelations that were taken up into the heavens and planted back down again. Ezekiel talked to this, Enoch, and so on. These revelations of the nature of things.
Yeah.
Like I've had some extremely powerful and potent experiences of going up a kind of world tree, if you like, and then going down it again.
So you had an experience
of holding this life, this existence together between absolute good and absolute creation and order, and then destruction and chaos at the bottom. And I truly felt, hand on heart, the experience of being taken down into some kind of primitive rocky matter, and then up into vegetative matter, up again into...
What does that mean? What does that mean? The two extremities.
In a moment.
Say again?
You're getting the idea of the whole of creation in a,
Yeah, but what does that even mean? Whole of creation in a moment. What does it mean?
Showing you how this is how I did it. Here you go.
Yeah.
And this is the essence of evolution in a human mind in a second. You people can go and learn how to navigate these worlds, if you like, and have these initiatory experiences.
People who might have taken certain drugs could have that experience.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything, does it? It is just their imagination.
You just said that the prophets are given a certain something.
Revelations, not drugs. There's a big difference.
For sure.
Yes.
For
So certain people can have this high experience. I don't know, even otherworldly experiences through drug being induced.
They come to any number of different people. You could be Chai, you could be a Taoist monk, you could be Buddhist. Doesn't matter who you are. You can be Jewish, you can be Christian, you can be Muslim.
Yeah.
When you're ready, that God, the Master, will appear.
No, but what I'm saying is, look, for everyday people, for the lay people, for them, what they require is some form of guidance for them to lead a life. For example, if you were to distinguish between the good and bad today, everyone will have their own understanding of good and bad. Do you agree? Yeah, it's subjective. So how would you come to a conclusion as to what is really objectively good and what is really bad or evil? How would you come to that understanding? If everyone is thinking subjectively, which is not helping us, is it?
In a more pristine way, in a clearer, in more clarity, through having a series of revelations that showed me the order of things. and that order was behind.
But how do you know that revelation is
There
from?
was also its flip side.
How do you know that revelation is from God, though?
Well, it was from. This is the thing, right? It showed me everything.
Yeah, but the devil can do that if he wants to.
It showed me the
Could the devil
showed me.
could the devil do that if he wanted to?
It may be. Here's the thing.
Do you remember in the Bible the devil shows Jesus the? Remember the devil takes him to a mountain.
Of something absolutely intrinsic within the human condition, and that is that we are both of those things.
You remember the 40 days in wilderness where Jesus spent with the Satan, and the Satan showed him many things. So the devil can show the same thing to even Jesus.
What did Jesus say at the end? You know, he said, "Get out, go, get from me, Satan."
Yeah, but that's the thing. Jesus could identify the Satan. Can you though?
I think that look, this is nature, and this is our understanding now of good and bad. Specific.
It's subjective. I'm telling you, good and bad for everyone is subjective. Unless and until God instructs you specifically.
There is an objective and a meaningful and a testable and a way to understand good and bad that have absolute connotations for the human spirit, psyche, body.
How would you identify that? That's the question, my friend. How would you identify good or bad?
You have to look at how people resonate and conjugate with each other. And I mean conjugation in more than just a sexual sense, right? The idea of having a shared experience, the idea of having shared kind of relations that help us build societies.
You know, there are many cults who have a shared experience, a shared understanding, but those cults later on people realized were actually indulging in evil. When their leader told them it was actually something good. You know, like the guy in Waco, Texas? Yes. So these people, they literally believe that this is message they're receiving from God. But it turned out.
What do they start to do after a while?
Exactly. So but the thing is how it started was good according to them. And it ended up becoming evil. And that's why I'm telling you, how will you identify? Because many people have the shared experiences, which they are in fact, I don't know, in a way they become oriented once you're in that cult, that you're doing something good for the whole of humanity. And you guys are chosen ones, you guys are the special ones who God has chosen. And this cult, they believed everything that the leader told them until they realized it was just evil.
Right? He rejected this notion of being. There are passages in the New Testament that say these kinds of things. Don't run to me all the time. Don't worship anyone apart from God. Keep it real. You know?
Just on that point, what you said there, we agree with. Worship only God. But you're using your experience to say that Jesus is part of God, and that's where we're disagreeing. Because we're saying if you stick to Revelation itself, all the old patriarchs, Moses, Abraham, Noah, they never said Jesus.
Yeah, no.
So how could Jesus be God if they never mentioned him?
They have their own. The funny thing is that there are aspects of the Jesus story all over the Old Testament. That's another thing. There's another question that you can see where the Jesus story came about through the Old Testament in a very large part.
The Jews would disagree with that, and so would some.
Well, Jesus would disagree with that. So if I were to ask you, did any of the patriarchs...
Jesus never existed in my worldview. Jesus didn't exist. As a person, historically, no one has a clue about Jesus in his time. No one knew about...
What do you mean he didn't exist?
He didn't exist.
What does that mean?
Judea, he was never in the Sea of Galilee. When you're talking about fishing for men, it's actually stuff that's going on in the heavens.
Or Gnosticism, that's the Gnostic view.
No, the Gnostics believe in Jesus.
Here you go.
I don't know about him.
This at the moment, it's very interesting. I've known about this for a while. Every single...
Scriptures in the stars.
Scripture in the stars, the tetramorph, the idea of the great beast of Revelation. All you need to do is look up into the eternal heavens, and it's right there.
What do you see in the stars?
A system of stars, 4 constellations that are the beast of Revelation.
What does that tell you?
All right.
What does that tell you? What do the stars tell you?
The stars were the backdrop for many of the stories that, like the as above, so below kind of aspect of where the stories came from. They came from the heavens, they came from the stars. Jesus is essentially a bit of a solar overlay of a story that's always been with us in Hercules, Apollo.
But you just said Jesus didn't exist.
No, that's right. It exists as a force, as a consciousness within creation that is felt inside, innately in us.
Did Mary exist?
Luke and John say the same thing. You can read the Bible.
Did Mary exist?
No. Well,
No?
Where did she come from?
What do you mean, where did she come from? From her parents, obviously.
Yeah, but this is the thing. Joseph, Mary, the brothers of Jesus. So many of these characters, like John the Baptist, existed in history. We know about him. We know about James the Just, right? The Dead Sea Scrolls.
No, but if Mary
don't mention Jesus, why not?
Hold on, Mary did exist, right?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know?
We don't know. Is the thing.
Okay, did Joseph exist?
The Bible tells us that
Did Joseph exist?
outside of the Bible, we have no knowledge of Jesus Christ. And we don't know any.
Outside the Bible, we got it in the Quran.
Well, sure, when did the Quran come along?
Oh, when did the New Testament come?
Well, exactly.
Exactly. So just
Find
because
out. I mean, we can find out.
no, but if you're going to use that logic, just because the New Testament came maybe thousands of years after Abraham, for example, does it mean Abraham didn't exist?
It's usually in history when you're talking about the historical record and very big names in history, people who commanded armies, fed 5,000 with a few meager bits of bread and 2 fish. Usually that's going to create crowds. And if the sun darkens for 3 hours on the day of Jesus' death, and then there were rabbis in their tombs that get up and walk around, according to Matthew. Like these are zombies walking around Jerusalem.
Yeah, we don't believe that.
Nobody believes that because it's not true. It didn't happen.
In fact, only Matthew wrote about it, not the other Gospels.
Sure.
Okay, so those are anecdotes that we differ and we definitely don't believe. But the fact that if you were going to go just by historic records, you don't find any of Moses either.
I think we know who he is.
But no, on purely on historic records, did Moses exist?
Yeah, but he was.
Which historic record mentioned?
He was an Egyptian late dynasty pharaoh. Yeah, and that the idea.
Which pharaoh was called Moses?
The thing is,
I think you're all over the place, man.
And current and modern archaeology is beginning to prove this thesis, and it's strong. You know what I mean? So we have Jacobam, we have Mamekra.
Let's stick with Moses. Which pharaoh was called Moses? None of them.
Moses, Akhenaten and Aaron.
No, he wasn't called Moses.
No. It's the same deal. He had the story of that.
In fact, these pharaohs which you're talking about, they believed in an afterlife, which is completely different to what I don't know, even you as an agnostic would actually deny.
The idea of the Egyptian Book of the Dead and Osiris, the Assyrian copy of the story of Jesus Christ is very big. He was a dying and rising God.
I think we should stick to one conversation, because if we go all over the place. So if you have any historic record of Moses, then tell us. Otherwise, just speculating that he might be this pharaoh, that pharaoh is irrelevant. Okay? So look, if you're going to hold the Bible, I don't know if you hold the Bible as a credible historic record, or is it just something that you would read and not consider it to be?
It has a basis in truth, yes, but it's been filtered through.
Only the Old Testament? What about the New Testament?
The New Testament is basically a rehash of the Old Testament of Moses. So Moses and Jesus are very mythologically linked.
How?
Oh, all kinds of I can show you.
Did Moses have a birth through a virgin?
There are many.
Was there a virgin birth in the case of Moses?
No.
No?
I don't think so.
Okay.
There are so many parallels, and oftentimes they.
Give me one that you can think of. Go on.
I could get loads.
But Moses wasn't God. You believe Jesus to be God, right?
He said Jesus didn't even exist.
He's not a person.
No, but that's fine.
The idea of the
What Moses is a person?
Man, yes.
Okay, no, but Moses is not celestially God.
Was Moses a person, according to you? So where's the parallel?
I can show you if you want. Let me just get.
No, but these are things that we know about Jesus and Moses, and there are many things that differ between them. For example, Moses led armies. Yes, he was someone who was in charge of a kingdom and so on, and he used to lead armies. Jesus didn't do any of that. Jesus was more or less a pacifist in the New Testament.
Yeah. And this is another thing about this, the wonder of these documents, because it tells you where Mark was writing, what Mark tells you and what Luke tells you.
Yeah.
Luke is a more augmented story. The Lucan story is Romanized. That's why you find so many mythological aspects from the Greco-Roman world in Luke.
That's because Luke wasn't one of the disciples.
And I'm going all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Let's discuss the God of Moses, Jesus, and Abraham. Do you think they all believed in the same God?
St. Augustine once said, what we now call the Christian religion has always been with us in other religions.
What does that mean?
What existed before is right with us now in Christianity, and it always existed. I think he was on to the fact that there are so many pagan mythologies that were essentially saying the same thing.
Okay, so
and they branched out.
When you say pagan mythologies, are you saying that Moses actually believed in some, or Jesus believed in some pagan mythology? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they are pagan mythologies, 100%. They always have been, always were. The virgin birth happened with Romulus. The virgin birth happened with Osiris and Ra. The virgin birth is, Perseus. Alexander the Great had a virgin birth. Plato had his virgin birth. This was the mythological world at the time.
I'm talking about the God that they believed in.
Yeah, sure, it's the same, you know what I mean?
So Zeus is not the same as Yahweh, is he?
The mythotype tells you where the ideas came from, and it's the easiest explanation for what we see in the mythological.
So is it possible that you could be believing in a pagan mythology as well?
I think, and here's the thing, you can't test this, but when you have revelations of the Spirit that comes into the...
Yeah, but that's your subjective claim.
Exactly.
We can't really ascertain any of that. Right. A guy could be smoking some weed and he could be telling us the same thing, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I'm writing a book now called Parallel Mythicism, right?
Yeah.
And it links...
I think this is the thing with Gnosticism, because there's a lot of mythology involved in it.
Both Moses and Jesus, yeah, so you have a look at... These are
there's a lot of stuff on the internet which we could...
No. These are straight from the books. These are both died on heels. Both. Moses and Jesus do this and this. You know what I'm saying? These are actual
similar.
They are links. They're passion.
He doesn't believe that.
Linkages.
Okay, but the thing is, Moses.
I know. That's what I just told him. A guy smoking, weed could just tell you the same thing.
Jesus is not. He's incorporeal. He's a spirit animal. Who the epistle writers believe was died, who was killed and resurrected at the behest of God in order to fool the archons of this age.
The early Christians didn't believe this.
That was what the epistle writers believed.
No, but there were early Christian groups who didn't believe that. Jesus never explicitly said what you're saying. He never said that.
Can you give me an idea?
He didn't claim divinity. He worshipped God himself.
Are you talking about the Gospels? What do you mean?
We get the Quranic perspective, but even from a logical point of view, Jesus ate, drank, walked around, so everything about him was human.
Yes, sure, but in what books?
The Bible describes him like a human being, the Quran describes him like a human being.
Yeah.
In fact, in the Bible, he's found to be worshipping God, bowing down on the floor. So
Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John,
in
right?
all of them.
Mark and John are different Gospels to Matthew and Luke, right? And there are so many varying...
No, but they do worship him in many different Gospels, right?
He's saying he didn't even exist, so he's coming up from a totally different angle.
No, but even if he didn't exist...
It doesn't make sense in history. It makes more sense from a mythological perspective, because then you can pick and choose what you want. You're building a story that has truth.
But you could be doing the same thing without a revelation.
How do you interpret the metaphor of Jesus worshipping God? How would you explain that metaphor?
I think the metaphor is in an essential parable about a Jesus that lived and walked on earth, who is not a real person, but is there to teach Christians as a vehicle for understanding how to be a godly human being.
No, but he never claimed to be a godly human being. That's the thing.
But he came straight from the Father, right? There are plenty of. I mean, even.
But you're saying he didn't exist. What do you mean he came straight from the Father? Just now you said he didn't exist. Now you're saying he came straight from the.
Right? He says, "Me and the Father are one."
Yeah, he also says, "I and the disciples are one." He also says he and the disciples are one with the Father. So what does that mean?
This is the language that mythology uses to try and convey truth.
Yeah, but mythology itself means it's a myth. It's not something that's confirmed. So what you're believing in is something which could be fiction.
It's the idea of truths that are transcendental, that are forever being encapsulated in stories. Like the Jews knew this word as well. They used to tell a lot of the Old Testament texts are there to convey archetypal truths. They're not necessarily based upon.
I mean, no, even if we were to go down your line, then the clearest archetypal type of truth is that of pure monotheism.
At the end of it, sure, then I believe.
No, but with Jesus being with Jesus being deified, that goes against that archetypal truth. Like there's nothing like say that Jewish guy over there, right? He would never accept Jesus as being God, but he's been reading the Old Testament all his life.
Do you believe you are divine in some way?
Well, I believe, yeah, I think there's a divinity within every human being, yeah.
See what I mean? This is going beyond even monotheism. This is more like, I think the Hindus believe in a similar concept to you.
Paul believed in the same thing. I think a lot of Old Testament prophets believed in essentially the same thing.
Who? Paul?
I don't know if this...
Paul was a Jew. He was a Pharisee. He wouldn't believe in anything.
He was also, he became his Christian, you know, his new sons of God, Christian, whatever.
Do you see?
He never mentioned the name Christian, by the way.
Yeah, but do you see Paul worshipping a triune God? You don't.